Inside St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle, a remarkable story unfolds, a story written in stone, etched in history, and whispered among the tombs of great monarchs. This chapel is more than just a resting place. It is a hallowed ground where the echoes of kings and queens linger. As you step into this magnificent chapel, you encounter a solemn yet awe-inspiring atmosphere, a fitting backdrop for the many royal figures interred here. Among them lies one of the most infamous kings to ever rule England, Henry VII. His legacy, steeped in both triumph and treachery, commands respect and intrigue. But he is not alone. In the choir rests the notorious King Charles I, a ruler whose reign ended dramatically during the English Civil War, as he faced the ultimate price for his tyranny, losing his head on the executioner's block. Fast forward to modern history, and you find St. George's Chapel as the final resting place of Queen Elizabeth II, a woman who, for many around the globe, will forever be remembered simply as the Queen. Elizabeth II's reign was marked by grace and resilience, spanning over 7 decades, making her the longest reigning monarch in British history. Her passing resonated deeply, leaving a void in the hearts of millions. But what few know is that her burial was meticulously planned long before her departure from this world. Elizabeth had specific wishes for her final rest in place, envisioning a serene spot within St. George's Chapel. While many might think she rests in the royal vault, the truth is more intimate. She was laid to rest in the small memorial chapel, an architectural gem commissioned by her during her reign. This chapel tells a story of devotion, family, and legacy, intricately woven into the fabric of the British monarchy. The King George VI Memorial Chapel, nestled within the larger St. George's Chapel, was commissioned by Elizabeth II in 1962. It was intended as a dignified resting place for her father, George VI, and her mother, the Queen Mother. The vision for this chapel was grand, aiming to house the remains of 3 monarchs and their consorts in a space that would be both reverent and beautiful. Elizabeth's private secretary in December 1962 penned a letter to the Dean of Windsor, making 2 significant requests. First, to prepare her eldest son, Prince Charles, for confirmation, and second, to find a specific resting place for her father. After George VI's funeral, his remains were placed in the royal vault, a temporary solution due to the shock of his passing and the absence of a pre-existing tomb. In a poignant twist, Elizabeth wanted a special corner of St. George's Chapel designated for her family. However, the initial plans took 5 years to materialize as she wished to spare her mother the pain of interring her husband a second time. Notably, Elizabeth had a personal aversion to the life-sized effigies adorning tombs in places like Westminster Abbey and St. George's Chapel. With space at a premium, it was decided that a chantry would be built on the exterior of St. George's Chapel, with an entrance off the nave. This was the first addition to the chapel since the early 16th century, a significant architectural event in its own right. Numerous designs were proposed for the burial chapel, with many being rejected before architect George Pass's vision was approved. This design called for a small chapel nestled between the Rutland Chapel and the north choir of St. George's Chapel, measuring just 18 feet high, 10 feet wide, and 14 feet deep. Completed in 1969, this remarkable space is made from stone quarried in Rutland and features stunning stained glass in red and blue, with a roof decorated with embedded gold leaf. Within this sacred space, an altar displays a portrait of King George VI, a tribute to a beloved monarch. The chapel's floor hides an interment chamber designed for future monarchs with the capacity to lift the floor for new burials. However, as time passes, this modern chapel is filling up, adding layers to its rich narrative. A few weeks after Queen Elizabeth II's passing, I visited the chapel and was struck by its size. Despite the dimensions suggesting it might be small, the room felt incredibly intimate, filled with a weight of history and emotion. On March 24, 1969, King George VI's remains were transferred to this newly completed chapel, a project that cost over £500,000 in today's currency, entirely funded by the royal family. The chapel was dedicated in a ceremony attended by many royals, including the Queen Mother and members of the Order of the Garter. As a poignant reminder of hope during turbulent times, the chapel contains gates inscribed with the words, "I said to the man who stood at the gate of the year, 'Give me a light that I may tread safely into the unknown.'" These words, included in King George VI's Christmas message to the nation in 1939, provided solace as Europe braced for war. Also resting within the chapel are the ashes of Princess Margaret, the Countess of Snowdon, the younger sister of Queen Elizabeth II. After a life filled with both glamour and struggle, Margaret succumbed to smoking-related illnesses. Unlike most royals, she chose cremation, and her ashes were temporarily placed in the royal vault at St. George's Chapel before being transferred to her family's new burial site. Margaret had long found the royal burial ground at Frogmore to be rather gloomy. She expressed a desire to be interred alongside her father, and so after a private service at St. George's Chapel, her ashes were placed in the newly created memorial chapel alongside King George VI and the Queen Mother. When the Queen Mother passed away just 7 weeks later, Margaret's ashes were interred with her parents, creating a poignant family resting place. Now, under George VI's ledger stone lies not just he and his wife, but also their daughter, Princess Margaret. A tombstone in the chapel's right-hand corner reads, "In thankful remembrance of Her Royal Highness, the Princess Margaret, Countess of Snowdon, born August 21st, 1930, died February 9th, 2002." Beside it lies an epitaph penned by Margaret herself, a poetic reflection on faith and devotion. The next royal to be laid to rest in this chapel was Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, and husband to Queen Elizabeth II. Following his passing in 2021 at a remarkable age, Philip's body was temporarily placed in the royal vault, awaiting the time when he could be reunited with Elizabeth. Unbeknownst to many, after Philip's funeral, his coffin was stored in the royal vault, a solemn weight that carried a sense of foreboding. As Elizabeth II and Prince Philip's lives drew close, their intertwined destinies became evident. On September 19th, 2022, after a moving service, Elizabeth was laid to rest in the memorial chapel she had envisioned and commissioned herself, surrounded by her family and the weight of history. Interestingly, Elizabeth's coffin was crafted over 30 years before her funeral, made of English oak and lid lined to resist decay. The weight of this wooden coffin required 9 bearers to lower her into the vault. The world mourned the loss of a queen, a figure who had stood as a pillar of strength for decades. For many, she was the only monarch they had ever known. Yet what remains less known is the fact that she was not interred in a royal vault, as tradition might suggest, but rather in a small, lovingly crafted memorial chapel, an enduring testament to her life and legacy. In this chapel, the stories of these remarkable individuals intertwine, a captivating narrative that continues to unfold within the walls of St. George's Chapel. Here, history breathes, echoing with the memories of those who shaped a nation, inviting us to reflect on the legacies they left behind. Thank you for joining me on this journey through royal history. If you enjoyed this exploration, please subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories from the past.